Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Packers Unscripted from Packers.com. I am Mike Spofford, joined, as always, by my trusted colleague, Wes Hodkowitz. We're coming to you here from our studios at Lambeau Field to preview Sunday's game. It will be the Packers against the Giants from the Meadowlands, a noon Central Time kickoff. I call MetLife Stadium the Big Tin Can in Jersey. Wes calls it the Big Air Conditioner. Whatever the case, it's a road trip for the Packers, Wes, against a 2-8 Giants team that A, is much better than 2-8 would ever suggest, and B, that is going through a huge transition with an interim head coach and now a brand new starting quarterback. This has been quite the week.
Yeah, so it's tough. It's a tough deal because it is the National Football League. So we all just stare at records and we say, hey, this team is good, this team is okay, and this team is bad. Because that's the amount of analysis most people on their couch are willing to wager on these type of things. But, I mean, there's probably been no team in the National Football League that's lost more heartbreaking games than the New York Giants on par this season. I thought their performance against the Chicago Bears sort of was the perfect encapsulation of everything they've gone through this season.
Yeah.
Where, Jackson Dart has given them some hope. They got off to a nice lead. Dart ends up getting the concussion, leaves, and everything slips away.
Yep.
And it just seems like whatever guy, specifically on the offensive side of the ball, has kind of given them some hope, that guy is immediately removed from the equation. Whether it's Malik Neighbors, whether it's Cam Scatabo, or now, obviously, with Dart. And hopefully, Dart, everything works out okay for him. A very exciting young player. But from the Green Bay Packers standpoint, this is a game you have to win. And they have to do it on the road against one of the more enigmatic quarterbacks, I think you would say, in maybe modern NFL history. I mean, this guy is the ultimate scattershot, but also the ultimate gamer.
Yeah, I want to get to Jameis Winston in just a second, but you mentioned kind of how things have gone wrong for the Giants. Before firing head coach Brian Daboll this past week, they have blown 4 double-digit leads on the way to those 8 losses. And to correct the record, somebody in Insider Inbox questioned me because I had written on Tuesday morning, they had blown 4 double-digit leads in the second half. And I was not entirely correct. I corrected it in this morning's Insider Inbox. They have blown 4 double-digit leads. 2 of them were in the second quarter, not the second half. Over the Cowboys and the Saints, and they lost both of those games. And then they've blown 2 double-digit leads in the fourth quarter, the one against the Bears this past week, and then earlier, the really bad one was against the Denver Broncos. They were up 19-0 going into the fourth quarter, 26-8 at one stage of the fourth quarter, and they let that one get away. And as we all know, the Denver Broncos are 8-2, and the Giants are 2-8. So it isn't all about the records in this league. But at the end of the day, yes, the record is what everybody looks at. But Mike Kafka, the former Northwestern University quarterback, is now the interim coach, offensive coordinator for the Giants, taking over. He's keeping the play calling duties, taking over as the interim head coach for Daboll. And he made the announcement right away, early in the week, that despite Russell Wilson being the number 2 quarterback, he was the guy who came off the bench when Dart went out with the concussion in Chicago, and that game got away. He and Kafka announced right away Jameis Winston would be elevated to essentially Dart's backup and is going to start the game because Dart is in concussion protocol. So you look at Jameis Winston, you said it, Wes, enigmatic, I think, is a pretty good word for this guy. His last full season as a starting quarterback was 2019 in Tampa Bay. He threw for 5,000 yards. It's not that long of a list of quarterbacks in NFL history who've had a 5,000-yard season. He threw for 5,000 yards with 33 touchdown passes and 30 interceptions. This is a guy that reminds me of how Brett Favre has often talked about his career, because Brett Favre is the all-time leader in interceptions in the NFL. And when he's asked about that, he says, well, you have to be pretty good to be allowed to throw that many interceptions, right? And Jameis Winston, he just, as Matt LaFleur said, he lets it rip. He plays with no fear. He plays almost with no conscience, in a sense, out there on the field. And the Packers have to be ready for anything defensively for what Winston might try to do.
So you and I this week, even before the announcement was made with Dart, you could kind of see where things were trending, especially with some of the history this season, the way he plays the position itself. We were kind of preparing that this was ultimately going to be a backup situation for the New York Giants. And if you break it down, certainly I think Kafka, as he's starting his next era here, probably wants to get some fresh energy in there. There is some negative vibes there after they collapsed at the end of that Chicago game with Russell Wilson out there. Wilson didn't play particularly well earlier this season. And if you go off track record, Russell Wilson, other than that NFC Championship game, the second half of that NFC Championship game in 2014, has been pretty bad against the Green Bay Packers historically. He has the lowest passer rating against them than any other team that he's ever faced in the NFL, and there's a pretty good sample size now as well with that. So going with Winston, who has had some success against Green Bay, and also you saw what he did last year for Cleveland, where, it eventually got off the rails a little bit, but that initial burst that he was out there, it brought some life, it brought some energy, and it changed the culture there a little bit, especially after everything that happened early on with the Browns and what had been going on with Deshaun Watson. So now he enters into this situation, and we were watching him at his podium this week, his first availability. I mean, the guy's singing Hamilton. He's so off the cuff. In addition to the fact that, what have I always said about the best backup quarterbacks in the NFL? They always are a little bit agents of chaos. There's always just something there where it's like they're dangerous, but it can go both ways.
Yeah, backup quarterbacks in some ways, they don't want the game to be normal because then it works against them, right? I mean, agent of chaos, that's a great phrase, and it works for some guys.
I mean, look, and I think Malik Willis has a bright future in this league, but when he got put in there in 19 days notice, they had to just kind of do some weird stuff just to make it all work there in that first start against Indianapolis. So I think the antennas have to be up for the Packers in this one. Absolutely, unequivocally. You have to be ready for everything. Now, that being said, you want to give respect to Kafka, who, by the way, I don't know if you looked at this, but these ages on these head coaches, man, are getting closer to me now. It's getting weird for so long. Like, even when Matt LaFleur got named head coach and he was 39, I'm like, oh, it's down the line. Now Kafka at 38, it's like, wow. We're here, brother. It's happening now. But the main difference makers offensively for them, they're gone right now. So it has been, and they have a very long injury list this week. So as much as you tip your cap to Winston, you show him that respect. There is a reason why the Giants are in the position they're in right now. And whether it's Tyrone Tracy, obviously, Darius Slayton, who's also on the injury report this week, they have some Wendell Robinson. They have guys that can hurt you. But the Neighbors, the Scatterbows, and obviously the Darts, who's their second leading rusher right now, are not going to be on the field Sunday.
Yeah, Jameis Winston is a guy who he doesn't change his stripes, right? I mean, you even look at last year, which was 5 years after his 5,000-yard season. He starts 7 games for the Cleveland Browns, and in those 7 games, he throws 13 touchdown passes and 12 interceptions. I mean, that's just who he is. He's we were having a discussion at lunch yesterday, actually, and one of our colleagues said, "Man, Jameis Winston can throw some dimes," and I said, yeah, but part of the problem is he tries to throw every dime, but that's the way he plays, but you have to respect it, right? You can't just assume that he's gonna throw you the ball, that interceptions are automatic. He doesn't have Malik Neighbors out there, but Wan'Dale Robinson is the Giants' leading receiver. Darius Slayton made a couple catches against a couple of big catches against Chicago last week. One thing that I'll be curious to see with regard to Winston in this game is how much does he use his legs? How much does he run? Because Jackson Dart, and unfortunately it's what has led to some of the concussion issues with Dart, but Jackson Dart brought something to that Giants offense with his mobility and his run and his running, whether it was sometimes designed runs or just the scrambling to get away and to make things happen. And Winston is a guy who's certainly done that in his career, but he's also not 24 years old anymore. Right. So I'm curious to see how that goes.
Unfortunately for Jameis, he wasn't around in the 90s. I think if that guy would have been in the NFL in the 80s and 90s, he probably would have just been a starter and no one would have thought twice about it.
Oh, yeah, no.
But unfortunately, the interception thing became kind of a big deal now in the NFL. And shoot, if you throw over a 17 game season, if you throw 15 picks, you're not. People are like, wait, what's going on?
You're
with
not
this
protecting the ball well enough. Yeah, exactly. Well, on the defensive side, Wes, this is a very interesting Giants team because they have a defensive front with 4 first-round picks. Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence, Abdul Carter, and Kayvon Thibodeau.
Yep.
4 first-round picks on that defensive front. And Brian Burns is up there. He's got 11 sacks, which is tied with Myles Garrett for the most sacks in the NFL this season. It's a pass rush that is extremely formidable. And somehow that pass rush did not sack Caleb Williams once in the game against the Bears last week. Caleb Williams was just escaping left and right, making just these unbelievable moves to get out of trouble in the pocket. And the fact that pass rush didn't have any sacks in that game was remarkable. And you tip your cap to Caleb Williams in that regard. But the flip side of it with this defensive front is they're ranked 31st in the league against the run.
Yep.
They've allowed 152 rushing yards per game for the season. I believe the average rushing yards is 178 over the last 4 games. Now, some of that, certainly last week with Caleb Williams, some of that has been quarterback scrambles, not the traditional running plays that it counts as rushing yards and it goes against them when these quarterbacks do get away from the pass rush and take off and run. But for all the talk this week about the Packers needing to be more effective with the running game and for this offense to really be able to hit its stride and get going where it wants to go, this is the opportunity you're waiting for.
Unequivocally. Again, you mentioned the 32nd in the league or 31st in the league in rushing. They're dead last in yards per carry allowed. 5.53 yards per carry is a lot. That is a big number. When you're getting above 5 and then you're almost halfway to 6, that shows that there's some issues there. What I will say is I think if there was ever a time, and Green Bay's been trying, as they might, to get the run game going, this is the type of opponent you want to do it against. I haven't broken down and watched every single Giants game this year. I've seen a few, and I don't know how much of the issues with the run game are guys selling out or just guys at the second level not tackling properly, but the Giants are dangerous. And the reason I say that is, one, Brian Burns, if you go back and you had to hear me talk about it 6 years ago, he was one of my favorite guys in the 19 draft. The Packers ended up with a really good pass rusher too in Rashawn Gary, but I absolutely loved Brian Burns. And for Carolina to allow him, and there was a lot of stuff that happened there, but for them to allow him to get out of the building, I thought it was a really salient move for the Giants to go get him. 100%. I just really want to quickly run these stats at you because the 11 sacks is really impressive, but check this out, Michael. 17 quarterback hits among those, 6 pass deflections, 2 forced fumbles. It's not that he just gets to the quarterback. He's affecting the all-around football game if you allow him to pin his ears back and get after you. You know, Abdul Carter only has a half sack this year, but he has 8 quarterback hits. Kayvon Thibodeau, 9 quarterback hits. They have guys that will pressure the quarterback. So if you don't actually win those early downs and they get to manageable third and long, they are going to get after you. The Packers have to find some answers for that. And to me, not to get into the keys of victory, but establishing Josh Jacobs, establishing this run game is going to be huge. Was talking with Sean Ryan about this in the locker room on Wednesday when he was asked about the focus for this game, and he said, run the ball. Yeah,
and let's dive right into the keys to victory because as we do this, I'm reminded, and what you just said as well, I'm reminded of what I said last week with regard to the Packers going up against the Eagles, and you had Saquon Barkley in the backfield, and you had Jalen Hurts, who'd been sacked 25 times over the course of the year. And what I said is the Packers defense has to earn the right to rush Jalen Hurts, and you earn that right by containing Saquon Barkley and putting them in difficult positions. And then as it turned out, the Eagles just kind of gave up on those third and longs because they weren't going to put Hurts in harm's way. They weren't going to let Micah Parsons wreck the game. And so we saw what we saw. From the Packers' perspective in this one, don't let the Giants earn the right to come after Jordan Love, because if you can establish the run, and it's not to say that you're going to be in 2nd and 2 like all day long, but if you establish the run and you're keeping yourself in manageable to short 3rd downs, that makes it very hard to get after the quarterback, because then you can always call a quick pass, get the ball out of the quarterback's hands, not let these guys come after the quarterback like the Packers have seen opponents do with regard to Parsons and Gary, and not letting them do their thing. So that's job one for me. But the other thing, I'll say it right now, what I want to see in this game against this run defense is the Packers need to bust some explosive runs, because these last 2 games, I took a look at it for the story that I posted on Packers.com last night. Josh Jacobs has been pretty productive in the last couple games running the ball. It hasn't been bad. You hope that it could be better, and it's not just all on Jacobs. It's it's the blocking and all of that kind of stuff too. But Jacobs has carried the ball 38 times in the last 2 games. And only 2 of those 38 carries have been explosive runs, which are defined as 12-plus yards. Only 2. He had a 15-yard run and an 18-yard run against Carolina. 2 out of 38 being explosive runs isn't good enough. And this is a run defense where you hope that the Packers can get Jacobs a seam, get him some open space, and let him do his thing to turn, an 8-yard run, make a guy miss, and turn that into a 15 or a 20-yard run. They need to do that a couple times in this game.
Absolutely. And, when you look at Josh, and unfortunately, just with some of the circumstances, we haven't been able to see a lot of those 20-plus runs here during his time in Green Bay. But when he is in the open field like that, the guy goes to work. I mean, when you get him matched up against a safety or a defensive back, good luck to them. And it's just been a matter of clearing enough space for him to get there. The one that was actually kind of tragic was that 14-yard touchdown I think he had, was that against Pittsburgh, where it was right up the gut and he got into the end zone. It was a great play. It was the one that afterwards he said I could have tripped and probably still scored on. If that play happened at the 45, it's probably still a touchdown. But it just happened that it was inside the red zone.
Right.
The Packers have been very productive with him in the red zone, but it's about between the 20s if they can get more established there. And when you look at their 3rd downs, a situation that the first 6 weeks of the year, Mike, you and I were talking about how proficient they were there. They have fallen short in that area in recent weeks, and they haven't been able to do it, whether it's been 3rd and short or 3rd and long, where sometimes the other was rescuing the other during the first half, or I should say the first month of the season. For me, when you talk about the key to victory at this game, the fact that Jameis Winston is on the field, it's all about takeaways. These 2 teams are both tied for 29th in the league in fewest takeaways. They're both sitting at 6 on the season, I believe.
Okay.
The Packers have 4 straight weeks, though, where they've now taken the ball away. Historically, if you look on the whole bandwidth of the season, the Giants have actually done a pretty good job of protecting the football. But now you're kind of throwing this new variable in there with Winston. Whether it's Xavier McKinney, whether it's Evan Williams on the back end, or maybe even a guy like Keyshawn Nixon on the perimeter, who's now 2nd in the league in pass deflections, but still looking for his first pick on the season, I think there's going to be opportunities. When Jameis Winston gives you a chance, you have to take advantage of it, because that guy is an equal opportunity explosive playmaker and also a guy that could potentially give you a chance for an explosive play defensively. The Packers cannot blink in those occasions.
Yeah, it's this game defensively, I think, is all about if Jameis Winston gives you a chance, you have to make that play. But at the same time, you have to be ready for anything with Winston, and that includes not just the fact that he might take shots down the field when you wouldn't think, based on the coverage we're playing and these he's not going to throw that. You have to be ready for that at all times. But as I said before, you also have to be on your P's and Q's with regard to his potential scrambling and taking off and running, because I think that's a very curious aspect that to me, that's the biggest unknown going into this game. What will Jameis Winston do with his legs? And as we all know, not to dwell on bad memories, but the last trip to the Tin Can in Jersey, a backup quarterback named Tommy DeVito, his ability to scramble and get out of the pocket, the Packers just never looked ready for it. They didn't react to it properly, and they lost a game they had no business losing. So that's just something I say, be on your P's and Q's with Winston in that regard.
You are 1,000% wrong. And when I say this, I am not saying that you're wrong. And this is why the Packers have to live up to their mantra. This defense and the way it's playing right now underneath Jeff Hafley and where it was trending at the end of the Joe Barry era are vastly different in this regard.
100% true.
They have to play the way that they've been playing. 2 weeks ago, they had a letdown against Rico Dowdle. They then corrected it against Saquon Barkley. Not perfect. They gave up the 41-yard check down. They gave up the 36-yard touchdown to Devontae Smith. They can do things better. But by and large, gave the offense a chance to win that game. They need to come out with their feet on fire again like that and play that way against this opponent. And if they do that, I think the Packers stand a really good chance to win this game.
Yeah, I like that. I like that as well. Well, we do need to pay some bills here. So before we take a look at other games around the league in Week 11, we'll hear from our sponsors. Sirius XM NFL Radio delivers hard-hitting analysis and up-to-the-minute NFL news that true football fanatics need 24/7, 365. At Cousin Subs, we have something for everyone, like our Wisconsin cheese curds, mac and cheese, golden fries, and creamy shakes, all paired with your favorite sub or sub in a bowl. Cousin Subs, 50-plus years of better. Pit Boss Grills, the official grill of Packers tailgating at Lambeau or at your house. Take your game day to the next level with a Pit Boss wood pellet grill. Pit Boss Grills available at Menards. Hey Packers fans, we always knew Lambeau Field was a wonder, but now it's official. Learn more about all the wonders of Wisconsin at travelwisconsin.com/wonders. Welcome back to Packers Unscripted. Wes, it is a very, very interesting slate of games in Week 11.
Tommy DeVito.
He is the backup for the Patriots now?
News to me.
Okay, yeah.
Because I was like, well, he's not in New York anymore. What happened to that guy?
Yeah, what happened to him?
Sorry. Yes, big week
that's
of games.
Okay. A couple of big matchups in the NFC North. Chicago is at Minnesota, and Detroit is at Philadelphia.
I was sitting here getting ready for the show in my pre-production meeting. Is it just me, or does the Detroit play every opponent the week after the Packers play?
It kind of seems like that's
they did that
the
with
way
Washington too, right? Doesn't it feel like it was like, or maybe it was Cincinnati? Like they just seems like they keep playing the team.
Yeah, I think it was Cincinnati. Yeah, because the Lions just played Washington last week, and the Packers played Washington back in week 2. But you're right. It's happened. It's happened a couple times this year. So
go Eagles.
So Detroit is at Philly. Chicago is at Minnesota. And I don't want to be looking ahead here, but when you look at the Vikings, okay, so they lost a home game to Baltimore last week. Mm-hmm. J.J. McCarthy is back. He's their quarterback. They've turned it over to him. The next 2 weeks, Minnesota has the Bears and then the Packers. They get the Bears at home, then they come to Lambeau Field to play the Packers. These next 2 weeks could potentially determine whether the Vikings are going to stay in this NFC North race or not, right? I mean, it's kind of on the line for them at this point. Meanwhile, the Bears have won 6 out of 7 since starting the season 0-2. Yeah, thanks, Wes.
You're welcome.
6-1 since the 0-2 start for Chicago, looking to get win number 7, a big road division game, and the division opponent the Bears lost to as part of that 0-2 start at the beginning of the season. So there's a lot to pay attention to with regard to the NFC North this weekend.
I don't know. What do you make out of J.J. McCarthy? Do you have?
I don't know. I think he's a young quarterback that he's riding the roller coaster that young quarterbacks ride when they get thrown in. And you have to remember, this was a first-round draft pick at quarterback, yes, but not a guy who got to sit behind somebody else for multiple years and run a scout team and all that. This is a guy who was injured his rookie year, basically didn't do anything but try to get himself healthy, and now he got thrown in there, and he's already dealt with another injury and had to miss time. I mean, this is the roller coaster that young quarterbacks ride, and there, as far as I'm concerned, there will be nothing close to a final judgment on J.J. McCarthy for a long time.
For me, I'm very curious to see this opponent. The Bears remind me in a lot of ways. They're not quite this bad in terms of total yardage. They remind me a lot of the 2011 Packers defense. I mean, they're leading the league. They have 20, I think it's 20 takeaways already this season.
Yeah, you have to protect the ball against the Bears, and they have a very hard time winning games if they don't get takeaways.
They don't.
Yeah.
And credit to Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson, they're protecting the ball well, and that has been the teetering point for when they've actually been able to win these games. But they've given up a lot of yards too. So very curious to see how J.J. McCarthy handles this opponent, given the situation and the fact that, kind of like the Packers, the boat the Packers are in, the Vikings desperately need a victory here. They'll be looking for it regardless against Green Bay, but to be back at home against the Bears now, they have to come up with a victory. Detroit has gone... It's a weird team, man. Like, Packer fans don't want to hear this stuff because all they want to focus on is, okay, we lost to Carolina and we lost to Philly. We're the worst team on earth and yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
The Lions have been going through it too. It was a step in the right direction last week, but now Dan Campbell's taken over the play calling. Their running game, you're not sure what you're going to get on a week-to-week basis. But they are good. They're a good football team. So definitely a huge measuring stick game for them against Philly, in much similar way of which the Packers were against the Eagles on Monday night.
Yeah, and from Philly's perspective, they kind of got into a knockdown, drag-out type of game against Green Bay on a Monday night. They fly back. They're on the short week. The team that has traveled. The Packers are dealing with that too, with the travel being now as opposed to before. But I think the Detroit Philly game is going to be a really, really interesting one to watch. A couple of other big games in the Western divisions of the NFL. In the NFC West, Seattle is at the LA Rams, both teams at 7-2. So that is for first place in the NFC West. And then in the AFC West, Kansas City is at Denver.
Yeah.
Denver 8-2, Kansas City at 5-4. And quite frankly, Wes, if the Kansas City Chiefs want to have a chance to win their 10th consecutive division championship, they have not lost the AFC West since 2015, 2016 through 2024, 9 in a row. They've won that division. But if they don't win this game in Denver, their chances of that streak continuing take a major, major hit.
Yeah, kind of in the same boat of the Packers, where they don't really have very many mulligans left here. Now they go up against a team like the Denver Broncos that has been very opportunistic this season, in which that pendulum kind of goes back and forth. Denver's been knocking down all the pins when it looks like they might be standing up. So the Raiders game was an excellent example of that.
And they've had two absolutely wild, crazy fourth quarter comebacks. One against Philadelphia, the other one against the Giants, like we were talking about earlier. The Broncos are 8-2. But there were two games where they looked like they were dead in the water, and then somehow they pulled them out.
To me, and maybe I'll be proven wrong on Sunday, the Broncos look like sitting ducks to me. I just feel like this is the type of game with Patrick Mahomes and Kansas City understanding what the stakes are here, the fact that they need a win. They are going into Mile High, but I was not encouraged by. defensively, the Broncos are going to always have a chance.
Yes.
I was looking at the stats before the show too. The Broncos are almost at 100 quarterback hits already on the season. The way they're getting after the quarterback, the way they got after Geno Smith in that game, my goodness.
Yeah.
So they will give them a chance, but offensively, it's been interesting to watch. So it's a marquee game for sure.
Any thoughts on who takes over the NFC West lead, Seahawks or Rams? What do you think? The game is at SoFi in L.A., but there's sort of like no such thing as a home game for L.A. teams. Like, that place is going to be full of Seahawks fans. That's the case. Seattle, I think both of these teams have shown they can be really, really dangerous offensively. I think the Rams have the better defense of the two. If I were to look at it right now, but this game just feels like a total coin flip to me.
Yeah, and I guess from what it sounds like, Devontae is going to play through the oblique, so that's obviously huge. He's playing again like in a franchise receiver. I was saying the other day, I was watching some clips of Jerry Rice. We'll see. Hopefully Devontae stays healthy. That's the number one thing. This guy's going to play well into his 30s. He has the footwork. He is the Aaron Rodgers of the receiver position. Really. The way he thinks about it and his attention to detail, I fully believe Devontae Adams is a Hall of Famer.
Yep, I do too.
But I don't see this train stopping. I think this guy's going to keep doing this at a high level. And the other thing I love too, Matthew Stafford has kind of picked up the Brett Favre mantra of, hey, every single year is this guy going to keep playing football, and then every single year he comes back and still plays at an extremely high level. Where I feel like in a lot of ways Russell Wilson kind of hurt his legacy, maybe even his Hall of Fame chances with everything that happened after Seattle. This second life that Stafford has got since he's gone to LA has been incredible to watch. So,
and even just beyond winning the Super Bowl there.
Yes.
It's been the years beyond when he won the Super Bowl with the Rams that, as you say, he keeps going, and every year that goes by, he doesn't look another year older.
Yeah.
I mean, he's right now in 2025, he looks like the same quarterback that won the Super Bowl 4 years ago.
Yep. No, I mean, it's been nuts to watch. I mean, I was looking at this too. Do you know how many times, let's play a little bit of trivia with Mike Spofford. How many times, he's drafted first overall in 2009.
Right.
How many times has Matthew Stafford made an All-Pro team?
I don't think he's ever been the
He
All-Pro
hasn't.
quarterback.
How many times has he gone to the Pro Bowl?
Oh, boy. I'm going to say maybe 3 or 4.
Twice.
Twice?
Including 2 years ago.
Wow.
He went once with the Lions.
Only went once with Detroit.
One of the most underrated quarterbacks in modern NFL history.
Yeah.
I'm favoring the Rams in this one. The main reason for that, James Jones gave me junk about this last week on the radio show. Because
James Jones gives a lot of people junk about things.
I said that he is the best.
I love JJ, by the way. That was
Yes,
said in
I
jest.
do too. I said that the Seahawks are the best team in the NFL right now. I'm not saying they're the most talented. I think they're playing the best as a team when you talk about the team consistency factor. And he's like, no, there's no way. And then they won another game. I'm still favoring the Rams, though.
Here's the thing, though. The Seahawks under Mike McDonald they're on this like crazy streak of road success.
Yes.
There's some of the mystique of Seattle and them being at home has been lost a little bit over the years. But Seattle is now they become the road warriors of the NFL. Yep. They're really hard to beat when they come into your place. And so I'm just gonna play devil's advocate. I'm gonna go against you. I'm gonna lean Seahawks in this one. One other one I know we gotta go.
I just realized Matt starts in 3 minutes.
One other one I want to get your thoughts.
Let's do it.
Tampa Bay at Buffalo. Both teams coming off a loss. Tampa Bay coming off a tough loss against a good Patriots team. Buffalo coming off a bad loss against Miami. And Buffalo's streak of AFC East division titles kind of is getting in jeopardy.
And New England's going to be facing a 2-win New York Jets team tonight, and that's their main threat in that. I'm favoring the Bills in that. The main reason I say that, the Bills' defense is definitely a weird anomaly. They're like middle of the pack overall. When I was talking about yards per carry allowed by the Giants, the Bills are second to last in that category. I just don't know if with Baker Mayfield, the way that backfield is constructed, if they're going to have the right recipe to beat the Bills. I think the Bills bounce back.
All right, and with that, we got to get to a press conference, so we'll call it a wrap on this edition of Packers Unscripted. Be sure to follow all of our coverage of the team on Packers.com. For Wes, I'm Mike. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. We will see you next time.